The 553rd episode of The Simpsons is, well, it's the 553rd episode of The Simpsons. It's the first episode of the 26th season. It promised a big character death that turned out to be Krusty's father, Rabbi Hyman. It has some good jokes and several more ones. It is an episode that rests almost entirely on Krusty's shoulders, a character who just can't really drive the plot of an episode at this point. It's fine. It's whatever. It's the 26th season of The Simpsons. None of that matters, though. The Simpsons, the 553rd episode, is important for a reason completely disconnected from its larger script. Because right at the beginning, it has my favorite couch gag of the entire series. And it's a blowout. Nothing else even comes close. This is something we're going to have to unpack in stages, many stages, and I'm going to do my best to show the relevant clips, but if you haven't already, you should watch this thing in full. I can't show the whole thing here because YouTube, but the official Fox channel has uploaded it, and I've linked it below. Okay, so first, let's just talk through what happens in the most literal terms we can, which is itself a surprisingly challenging task. Homer plops himself down on the couch, picks up a sci-fi looking remote, and turns on the TV, revealing that it's September 28th, 2014. He smacks the remote a couple more times, and the date starts going backwards. And as it does, Homer does too. His face rearranges itself several times, ending on the classic Homer, as he appeared on the first Tracey Ullman show Short. The television now shows April 19th, 1987, the day that first short aired. As he continues to hit the remote, time changes directions and starts going forward, rapidly. Homer's face continues to rearrange and he falls off the couch, spinning through a variety of transformations and art styles that we barely see. When it settles again, the TV reads, "Today's sun date be of September 36.4, 10,535. New Homer rises onto screen, a floating head on a mass of tentacles, droning. Text above him says that this is The Sampsons, episode 164,775.7. He looks around, then says,
"Family, meet me at the kitchen cube."
While he does, more text has appeared on the side of the screen. "Hail, hail, moon god, watch, watch, yes, yes, put in the eye hole, grow like plant." There's going to be a lot more text like this. Homer floats into the kitchen cube, and then we get our first peek at Bart and Lisa. Both have been reduced to a single sentence, Lisa repeatedly declaring,
"I am Simpson! I am Simpson!"
while Bart struggles out,
Don't have cow, man!"
like both of their essences have been carved down to a single catchphrase. Marge has seemingly suffered the most in the jump, a pillar of hair with eyes that's become some mouthpiece for a new religion.
Hail the Dark Lord of the Twin Moons!
Maggie descends from the ceiling, grows a periscope-like mouth, and announces,
"Make purchase of the merchandise."
Amidst the din, Homer says, and suddenly we're out of the kitchen cube, flashing once again through time and space, catching glimpses of other episodes. In number 20,254, Marge slaps Homer's head, both of them on stilts, and she says,
"Still love you, Homer."
In 37,211.4, amoeba-like family members swim towards each other, yelling,
We are happy families.
and in number 2 distorted to make out, and your formless Homer and Marge face each other. The subtitles say, "I will never forget you." It's maybe Marge who says this. Back in the kitchen cube, Homer looks around, surrounded by his screaming family. He says one final,
Dough.
haha, The Simpsons. This intro was made by an animator named Don Hertzfeldt, with, according to him, virtually no oversight from the Simpsons team or Fox at large. He's been making animated films for over 2 decades now, and even if you don't know his name, if you're within a certain age range, I would bet you've seen at least some of his work.
My spoon is too big. My anus ass is bleeding!
One of Hertzfeldt's earlier achievements is this short film, Rejected, which was, in fact, nominated for an Oscar. Through the haze of what feels like 400 years of bad internet humor, Rejected might seem a little trying. But Rejected predates all of that. I mean, it predates Peanut Butter Jelly Time. It's a short that supposedly details an animator's breakdown over having his bizarre submissions for the Family Learning Channel and the Johnson & Mills Corporation rejected. It is quite obviously vulgar in places, but undeniably memorable, and still incredibly funny. I lose it when his, quote, clear and steady downhill state continued. Soon he was completing commercial segments entirely with his left hand. And then we get this.
The monkey poured coffee in my moods!
At the end, the animation falls apart entirely, the paper ripping and drawings falling in on themselves. As well as simply being an entertaining sequence, it's one that highlights Hertzfeldt's physicality, both in animation and production. Although his work could be simplified to drawing stick figures, the weight and momentum with which each character moves is second to none, and his commitment to drawing on real paper and doing weird techniques with real cameras make all of his animations stand out from the countless other stick figure animations of the mid-aughts. Hertzfeldt's work continued to evolve over the next several years, in a phase that culminated in his film, It's Such a Beautiful Day. His first feature-length work, It's Such a Beautiful Day, is actually 3 short films combined into one hallucinatory, movie-length attack on the senses. The plot focuses on Bill, a man who gradually loses his grip on memory and reality due to a brain something. It's a difficult watch, both thematically and aesthetically. Throughout the film, we see Bill grow increasingly more sick and more detached from reality and spin through a whirlwind of his family history. From the first couple minutes, it seems like the ending is obvious. Bill dying, forgetting everyone and everything he knows. But in It's Such a Beautiful Day's boldest choice, the narrator refuses. In the last few minutes of the film, we're told that Bill will not die, not now, not ever. He lives on, thousands and millions of years into the future, learning everything there is to know, seeing everything there is to see. It's a beautiful form of denial. It's unexpected and touching. But if the years after the film are anything to go by, Hertzfeldt's art couldn't shake its themes: memory, death, deterioration. It's Such a Beautiful Day uses eternal life as an ending, a rejection of the expected. His next films, The Simpsons intro included, use that as a beginning. So you've achieved eternal life. Now what?
What's interesting is when you talk about that, living forever or as long as you possibly can. What you really want is a continuance of your memories and your experiences. If I said that you could live another 200 years, but we'd have to reboot you, that's not attractive. Nobody wants that. To me, that's where memories are very interesting, because what happens when we start losing memories? What happens when you can't take your memories with you? Who are we without our memories, without our past?
The Simpsons in their current permutation don't get any older and they don't get any younger, but time keeps passing. For a show more than 30 years old, this means that characters' memories get weird. In a recent episode, a flashback revealed that when he was a teen, Homer wanted to be a DJ. In the 90s, Homer wanted to be a teenage DJ a decade after Homer had already been on the air as a middle-aged power plant worker. This isn't like a plot hole moment, it's an irreconcilable impossibility at the center of the show. What happens when you don't change, but the world does? The references, technology, and lingo all shift, but the family is in the same place. This happens on scales both small and society-wide. As many people have pointed out, during its existence, the Simpsons family have gone from lower middle class to almost absurdly luxurious without actually changing their material situation. Wage stagnation is real, dog. Mr. Burns isn't the only one stealing from his workers. The Simpsons are in stasis in an ever-changing world, and to treat them like real people for a second, it's hard to decide which would be a worse existence. to actually reset themselves at the end of every episode, returning to 0 each time, or to somehow retain the memories of their thousands of lived experiences. Remember being both a middle-aged man in the 80s and a teenager in the 90s, of being hand-drawn and CG, of making progress and regressing infinite times. That question might feel inextricably linked to the sitcom format, a world made up of ends and resets in 30-minute chunks. But, as Hertzfeldt's next project would argue, that's just because we're thinking on too small a timescale. Viewed in the context of Hertzfeldt's body of work, every part of The Simpsons intro feels like setting up a springboard, one that he'd use to jump into his magnum opus, World of Tomorrow. What happens when you both can and can't take your memories with you? The Simpsons Couch Gag and World of Tomorrow released about 6 months apart, but on an animation timescale, that means they were absolutely being developed in parallel. The production links are evident. These are the first pieces Hertzfeldt did digitally, and a lot of the imagery feels related, but the far more obvious links are thematic, both about the far future, both in ways about living forever, both about the corruption of memory. In World of Tomorrow... Okay, deep breath. In World of Tomorrow, at some point in the future, the Earth is going to be destroyed. No, that's, let me start over. In World of Tomorrow, a very young child gets a call from her adult third-generation self that is a clone of herself in the future with most of her memories.
One day, when you are old enough, you will be impregnated with a perfect clone of yourself. You will later upload all of your memories into this healthy, new body.
That adult, let's call her Clone Emily, brings the child, let's call her Emily Prime, into the future using time travel because the cloning and mind uploading process is imperfect and
with very few signs of mental deterioration.
And Clone Emily wants to retrieve a comforting memory from Emily Prime before the world ends. Along the way, Clone Emily shows us what the World of Tomorrow looks like. In effect, unlimited technological power used in an attempt to preserve memories of the world before. But the film isn't simply a condemnation of technology making us lethargic. Clone Emily's purpose in life, for instance, is to continue the mind of Emily Prime, helping her live forever. If Clone Emily doesn't retain those memories, then what is she? She just exists, ages, and dies. A reset back to 0 at the end of the episode. She is cursed simply to live. Live without knowledge of the generations of herself that have come before, and one day take all of her memories to the grave. In World of Tomorrow, the potential of living forever means the reality of dying has to be avoided at all costs, even if the alternatives are unimaginably hellish in their own way.
Our grandfather's digital consciousness currently resides in this cube, where I upload the latest films and books for him to enjoy every week. We are also able to download correspondence from him. Over 1,000 letters were received during his first hour in storage, as this was approximately 4 years' time inside the cube. I will read one of his letters to you now. Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh my God, Holy Mother of God, oh God.
And even though there are far more ways to live, a human, a clone, an art exhibit, a consciousness, the existential panic about living correctly has only increased. The residents of future Earth know that there are so many ways they're living suboptimally in one way or another, not maximizing their lifespan, not fulfilling their purpose, not wealthy enough to escape the end of the world. This is further emphasized in World of Tomorrow too. There are 3, actually. We meet another clone of Emily, a backup, only made in case the main lineage of Emily failed or needed an organ transplant or something. But since the world ended and Emily's genetic line did too, this clone is a branch on a tree that no longer exists.
I was next in line to be Emily, and now I am no one.
This backup Emily has time traveled back to Emily Prime again. This time, instead of just retrieving one memory, she wants to duplicate Emily Prime's mind entirely and overwrite her own. She wants to become the person she feels she was born to be, even if that erases all of her already lived experiences. Even World of Tomorrow 3 is about this anxiety of being alive without purpose, how much you'd be willing to give up to feel like you were doing things for a reason. These are not themes that can be resolved in an animated short, or a feature, or a lifetime, for that matter. The World of Tomorrow films are instead about perpetually struggling to resolve the unresolvable, of trying to exert oneself in the world and attempting to survive when the world doesn't answer. I think if viewed by one of the many Emily clones in World of Tomorrow, The Simpsons would seem to have done it. They have achieved eternal life, they forever have purpose, they will continue their line until the end of time, and nothing can stop them. They were The Simpsons, and are The Simpsons, and will be The Simpsons.
With very few signs of mental deterioration.
And having achieved this, they get what, exactly? Constant reminders of the ways they've changed, and constant reminders of the ways they cannot. World of Tomorrow 2 is subtitled The Burden of Other People's Thoughts. It's a reference to how the Emily backup can't live simply as herself, but must live up to the ideal of what she feels an Emily must be. I think you could probably call the past, 20 years of Simpsons episodes The Burden of Other People's Thoughts. A cultural parody that became the culture, written now by the people raised on it. Adults suck, then you are one. I'm not particularly interested in if or when The Simpsons jump the shark, but the bizarre impossibilities of the show are only going to increase. Homer's an adult in the 80s and a teen in the 90s, or he's dead. There is no victory in Hertzfeld's depictions of eternal life. The morals are not that what's good is living forever in perfect shells of your former body. In World of Tomorrow, the only character in the whole series who seems to be totally without despair is Emily Prime. She's 5, and has no concept of death or annihilation or backup clones. At the end of the first film, after the entire convoluted plot, time traveling to retrieve a memory from a previous version of oneself, clone Emily delivers a Carpe Diem-esque speech that seems like she's stating what she cannot do.
Do not lose time on daily trivialities. Do not dwell on petty detail. For all of these things melt away and drift apart within the obscure traffic of time. Live well and live broadly. You are alive and living now. Now is the envy of all of the dead.
Okay.
In The Simpsons, episode 164,775.7, the most agency Homer can exercise is the simple fact that he has memories. Fragments of time, seconds of tenderness amidst a near-infinite stream of daily trivialities and petty details, lost in memory, because the present moment, a crushing of him and his loved ones into grotesque caricatures, is too hard to take. This couch cag argues that this fate isn't a possibility, it's a virtual guarantee. Through a fog of episodes, each character becomes a walking shell of itself, filled not with thoughts and passions, but our collective memories of what it once was. The burden of other people's thoughts, blocking out every other speck of light, until just outlines remain. This video is sponsored by Audible, which means it's time for me to recommend another short story collection. The first story in Friday Black by Nana Kwame Ajayi-Brenyah is one of the most striking stories I've ever experienced, and then he just keeps that level of quality up for the entire rest of the collection. At this phase in my life, short stories are really my favorite kind of fiction. They get in quick, make their point, don't get bogged down with uninteresting details or side plots, and always manage to really twist the knife at the end. Good God, are there some knife twists in Friday Black. The stories are dystopian and disturbing, though often not more so than our current world, and they operate with a level of political clarity and anger that's really made them stick with me for years. I don't even want to get into the concepts of these because they deserve their own video, honestly, but I'll just tell you that I think about the phrase the Finkelstein Five with alarming frequency. It's that first story, by the way, and you can get that collection along with a 30-day free trial by signing up at audible.com/Jacob Geller or by texting Jacob Geller to 500-500. Audible is, I think, a pretty perfect way to listen to short stories. Portable, easy to switch devices with, ready-made to take on a walk or a ride. Once you finish Friday Black, you can just jump into another one of the collections I've recommended, or anything else in their massive library. Just follow that link in the description, or text Jacob Geller to 500-500.